Farmers, trust is everything. At Genesis Fertilizers, we're not just proposing to build a facility, we're building a future designed for you. With real progress already underway, we're closer to providing Western Canadian farmers with a reliable, locally produced fertilizer supply. Now is the time to take control of your farm's future. Learn more at genesisfertilizers.com/credibility.
I'm Shaun Haney, and this is RealAg on the Weekend. Let's get real and get connected with the week that was in Canadian agriculture. RealAg on the Weekend starts now. Welcome to RealAg on the Weekend here on 650 CKOM and 980 CGME. I'm your host, Shaun Haney of RealAgriculture.com. Hopefully you had yourself a great week. And things have chilly. Yeah, winter here. We're only about, what are we, like 12 days away from Christmas, which is extremely hard to believe. And this year has flown by, so many issues. And, once we get to January, we are going to be right in the depths of conference season. Looking forward to Crop Production Show in Saskatoon. I will be in attendance. I'm there all week. So any of you fans of RealAgriculture.com and RealAg on the Weekend, you'll definitely probably run into me in the hallway somewhere at the trade show or around the city that week. Really looking forward to it. Hey, today on RealAg on the Weekend, we got a great show for you here. Lots has happened this week. We have lots to chat about. We're going to hear from Darcy Pawlik. He is the new executive director at the Wheat Growers Association. Darcy's got a long history in the industry, and I think a really good fit for the organization. So looking forward to hearing from Darcy. We got Jill Sharko from the Ag Scouter app, who's going to talk about some of the developments that they have for that product and what it can mean for agronomics or agronomy and agronomic decisions going forward. And then we'll also hear today from Kurt Blades. He is vice president of the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. He's going to talk about the November results, where we're at with equipment sales. Farmers had told us in October in our Canadian Farmer Sentiment Index survey that they were planning on one of the areas of cost cutting was equipment. Yeah, the numbers are bearing that out. They are definitely following through on that promise. We're seeing combines in the U.S. down like 25% compared to a year ago. So, not good. For like some of the equipment dealers, not a good year. So a challenging year, at least, for sure. So it's not just farmers that are dealing with some tighter margins. Some of the equipment industry is as well, especially on the dealer side. If you have any feedback on today's show, we'd love to hear from you. Send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. I had a busy week. I was out and about again. I was in Las Vegas, Nevada. I was at the Milk Business Conference, great conference put on by Farm Journal out of the U.S. I was on a panel with two dairy economists, and we were talking about dairy policy and trade going forward. Of course, there's a lot of interest in Canadian dairy and Canada's position going forward under the incoming Trump administration, what it could mean. We've seen a lot happen on the trade front overall. I've said to a lot of audiences in Canada and the U.S., don't be distracted by dairy. I actually think dairy could find an easy solution. I think my speculation here is that dairy finds a much quieter solution than it did the last time around. I think the Americans are going to be looking for Canada to comply with their definition of things like the tariff rate quotas, the TRQs, and not necessarily looking for more access, just looking for do what you said you were going to do according to our definition of the market access. That's what I think is going to happen. We'll see how Canada responds to that if I am correct in that assumption that I'm making. But we saw this week Ontario Premier Doug Ford basically saying he was going to cut off hydro to the U.S. That's a pretty strong point of view. We also saw this week Alberta Premier Danielle Smith putting Border Patrol together to, I guess, man the border and put more resources to the border. People have some strong opinions on that as well. And we also saw Premier Scott Moe, him talking about how, being dead against, and I don't blame him, this idea of Canada applying export taxes on products like potash and uranium and Alberta oil and gas. I'm with Premier Mo on this. Not a good idea. Export taxes should be like one of the last resorts. Why are we not talking about maybe tariffs if we are going to retaliate? Why wouldn't we be looking at tariffs on goods we're bringing into Canada as opposed to goods that we are shipping to the U.S.? Aren't we're kind of punishing ourselves in that regard? I get how we're getting to that, but I don't know if that economics really bears out, and the Premier's pushing back. You can see that everybody is not necessarily on the same page here. Watch out, speaking of not being on the same page, watch out for Monday. We've got the fall economic statement coming out. We're going to see how big the Canadian deficit is. Some people talking about upwards of 60 billion, up from the 40 that was originally intended. And all things are not good when it comes to the relationship between Prime Minister Trudeau and Deputy Minister and Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland. Yes, the Globe and Mail has had some stories this week that they are not on the same page, and even alleging that Trudeau is trying to throw Freeland under the bus. And he has again reignited his campaign to bring in Mark Carney, former head of the Bank of Canada, former head of the Bank of England, and really just they're trying to hold this government together with like sticks and stones and Band-Aids. Like they are like, duct tape is a solution for most of us in Canada for any problem. They're just duct taping this thing together. And at some point, isn't the writing on the wall? And they're going to let's just have an election. And whether the Liberals win or the Conservatives win, the polls are definitely showing right now that it's going to be a Conservative victory. But just let's get past this. This is bonkers. Anyway, that's my opinion. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear from Darcy Pawlik. We're going to hear what's going on with the Western wheat growers right after this.
For balanced nutrition with micronutrients, the best answer is Wolftrax DDP from Koch Agronomic Services. To learn how Wolftrax can ensure nutrient availability through a crop's growth cycle, visit wolftrax.ca.
If you're serious about agriculture, RealAg's got you covered.
For over 10 years, we've listened to and shared what producers have to say about everything from policy to agronomy from coast to coast.
Keep up with the latest in Canadian agriculture at RealAgriculture.com through daily newsletters and check out our YouTube channel.
Thanks for joining us in the RealAg community as we continue to cover and serve North American agriculture.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
Since 2010, the Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com has been helping farmers to grow great wheat. Covering everything from markets, the latest research, pest and disease control, all the way down to on-farm trials, the Wheat School has everything your crop needs. Check out our massive video library on YouTube and grow great wheat with the Wheat School, brought to you by Syngenta Canada, C&M Seeds, and Alberta Grains.
Excite your crops with inputs from Excite Bio. Access nitrogen and phosphorus with Excite Bio's lineup of inoculants and ag biologicals. Since 2010, they've been helping farmers harness the power of the soil. Learn more at xitebio.ca.
One of the organizations in Saskatchewan that really has a lot of opinions and does a lot of work on the policy front and making sure that farmers' interests are heard in sometimes a very loud way is the Wheat Growers Association. Long history in the province of Saskatchewan. This week they made some big news. They have found a new executive director. That is somebody that's no stranger to agricultural circles. It is Darcy Pawlik. He is the new executive director of the Wheat Growers Association. He joined me on the RealAg Radio podcast to discuss the role, some of the issues that he'll be working on, and where the organization goes from here.
Thanks for having me, Shaun. Great to be here.
Yeah, so give us some of your background.
Well, it's a long one. So the short version is spend some time in association. Great organization, Ag West Bio. Did a lot of advocacy, learned some of the basics there, got to meet everybody. Moved into Syngenta, lucky enough to get my feet wet with regulatory, headed up the seed division for Canada for a little while before moving south of the border, where I did everything from industry relations to running AgriPro for a little while. Fantastic experience. Did the startup world, hoping to get rich. Didn't quite work out through the pandemic, but learned about crop insurance and agriculture in many different parts of the world. Fast forward to marketing agency, fantastic learning experience, trying to really understand what goes on in the depths of marketing. And now I'm back here, with a place I love in policy and politics, Canada and wheat, and looking forward to this.
Yeah. So what is it about the role that does attract you? Why this role now, based on some of that background and that history and those experiences that you have?
I was lucky enough. I got to work with the wheat growers for many, many years. And one of the things that you can't take away from them, or anybody really that dedicates their time to the industry and volunteering, is passion. You meet the wheat growers and the folks that sit on the board and they're out advocating. Second to none, big heart, lots of passion. These are the movers and shakers in the industry. So big effect.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, who are, for some people that aren't familiar with the wheat growers, who actually are the wheat growers? We have a lot of different associations. We have membership orgs. We have checkoff orgs. Who are the wheat growers?
I'd like to kind of define them as, they're some of the most passionate ones, but they're really the ones that are trying to define the space of modern agriculture. They see themselves as the innovators, the early adopters, and they're sort of the ones that aren't too afraid to kind of put their hand up and say, hey, this is really what needs to happen for ag to progress, and for Canada in particular to progress with ag and stay at that sort of pace that we've been known to hold for quite some time.
So what are those issues that they're sticking their hand up and saying, hey, wait a minute here, have you thought about this? Or here's what our opinion is, because there are some loud voices in that group.
It's a harder question than it used to be. It seems like when I was doing this 10, 15, 20 years ago, the issues were a little bit slower to come and a little bit fewer and further between. But now it just seems like there's a bit of an onslaught. So, forgive me for not giving you sort of the flavor of the day version of this. But I mean, everything from regulatory overreach is certainly part of it. I mean, we're dealing with trade. You got issues at the ports. Labor disputes. I mean, it's really coming at us from all angles. And one of the biggest things coming into this role that I want to bring to it is we're going to need to prioritize. There's a lot of great organizations out there, grain growers, grain councils, commissions. Everyone's got to kind of pick and choose a little bit. So that's going to be part of my job as the new guy coming in is, what is going to be the focus and what's going to move the needle the most for us?
Yeah, for a long time, the wheat growers really rallied and wrapped themselves around getting rid of the single desk selling of board grains. That was, there was other issues, but that was the fundamental identity of the organization. But we don't really have like an issue like that right now. We've got a lot of issues, but they're definitely smaller in nature and don't get that broad, singular, isolated attention like the single desk did.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, that's one of the nice things about focus when you had something like the wheat board, as you can call it an issue, an organization, it's really about free trade. So that underlying premise of what they want to achieve hasn't gone away. Right. And so you can think of it as better trade. You can think of adding transparency to the system. We've got a few new KPIs with the strategic plan that we put together. It really comes down to what's going to help us improve productivity, what's going to help us improve our competitiveness, and make sure that we're getting access to the newest and best technology that's out there for the farmers to use here.
One of the issues, that is been identified here in the last year that I've seen numerous wheat grower members talking about a lot is like the gate project, for example. Is there an official position out of wheat growers on that project as an example?
It's one of those things that kind of popped up. They want to, and I think deserve to, have a better understanding of, what the business case is for this. What is the underlying premise? I myself had a pretty significant role to play in the creation of Cereals Canada. So, I want to have that conversation with them. Yeah, we came in with a lot of questions, and really what it comes down to and how we want to move forward is what's the solution? Like, what's the problem that they're aiming to solve with the gate project? And so we're going to kind of dig into that here over the next short period of time and really come to a better conclusion that I can give you some solid, like, this is how we actually stand on it right now. We're just really interested in doing right by growers and spending money in the right places.
Yeah, one of the other issues that is definitely going, I think it'd be more of a discussion point post-election, and I've seen a few farm groups that are bringing it up now, is plant breeding, and the public funding side of that, or attracting more private investment. You've got a history and some experience, like you mentioned, on the private side of wheat breeding. I've heard numerous people in the last several months through my travels talking about how, boy, there's going to be some cutbacks if we get a conservative government. I wonder if plant breeding could be one of those things that faces some budget cuts. What's your thoughts from the exploration of that topic, and what are some of the questions, or do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of thoughts on it. Coming out of the private sector in particular, we just saw different technology. We saw different approaches to breeding, and then different results as a consequence. And in particular, living in the States for almost a decade, I know how these systems can coexist. And so I hope that the discussion really becomes broader than, just a research mandate. To me, I think we need to put a little bit more emphasis and continue the discussion on development and commercialization in particular, Shaun. I think sort of the Canadian environment tends to be a little bit reliant on government, and not to say that they don't do a good job. But part of what the important part is, ask the question, what if we did it different? Like, what could we gain by, taking different perspectives and approaches to business plans and cases and then entities, things like that. And if we come with the same conclusion, so be it. I think that's good, but I think it's also a good discussion to have.
Yeah, and clearly there's a positive look from farmers about plant breeding. We back in the spring, RealAg Studies had asked farmers about a number of different policies. Do you see them as being positive or negative on your operations? The most positive policy was investment in plant breeding. So this is a discussion I think farmers are definitely willing to have. Where people stand on it will definitely be, as status quo, or make some big changes and try to make it better for the broader audience. And another issue that I know wheat growers are never shy and bashful about talking about is railways and transport. I'm sure you're going to be focusing a lot on that file as well.
Yeah, you've got it. Being landlocked and sort of the place where most of the grains get produced in Western Canada, it lends itself to a bit of a sticky situation. And regardless of whether we like it, whether we hate it, it's part of our reality. And I think the conversations that we've had with MPs and others there's no real easy answers. And so, we just have to be realistic. Fine, then let's figure out what the hard answers are and what can we do, right? The search for options, I think, is always part and parcel with coming to some kind of a solution. And I've been known to have some, bad options, bad ideas from time to time, but the idea is hopefully it'll lead to something good. And I think if we can do anything, hopefully it is to be the sounding board, come up with good ideas, bad ones, whatever it is, but make sure that we're having the discussion, right? So we got to go from the seed, the importance there and research. But I mean, it's got to get to those foreign markets. And, I've sort of, over the last 20 years, have kind of come to the conclusion, like, value add is a really big deal. So, the groups that are continuing to look at investment and trying to figure out, how do you maybe reduce the reliance on some of those rails and whatnot, like, let's talk about it. It's hard. It's very expensive. But we got to be able to compete internationally. So I think there's a lot more to it than meets the eye, Shaun.
Yeah, and you mentioned wheat growers going through a strategic planning process. Is a component of that to expand membership? Are you happy with the current base that you have? What's thoughts from a growth perspective?
Yeah, growth is always really important. I just want to encourage any growers that want to be a part of the organization, put your hand up, come reach out. It's the more the merrier, I think, is one way to look at it. But certainly if you have a mindset that you want to see progress, we want to have that discussion and please be part of the group. I think what builds community and, the vibrancy of our industry is that collaboration. And that's certainly one of our key values going forward. So, if you felt like we've been, not your kind of organization, maybe I'd encourage everybody to be willing to reach out. I'm more than happy to have a conversation, sit down, maybe find something cold and wet in between and, really kind of dig into the issues and how we're approaching them. But the idea is, please, we do look at growth as an important thing. We want to represent the types of growers that are powering the ag economy. If that sounds like yourself, I'm always around for a chat.
Hey, great stuff. We've been talking to the new executive director as of this week. It is Darcy Pawlik with the Western Wheat Growers. Hey, it is great to chat with you, Darcy. All the best to you. And I'm sure we will see you out and about on the convention circuit here in Q1. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks very much, Shaun. Thanks for having me. And thanks for all you do as well. It's important to have the voice of a very wide variety of folks out there. So really appreciate it.
We've got more coming up here on RealAg on the weekend. You're listening to 650 CKOM and 980 CJME. RealAg Radio is Canada's only daily radio show focused on agriculture. Get expert advice on Agronomic Monday. Tuesdays and Wednesdays will cover a broad range of issues. Thursday we'll hear from farmers across the country on the Farmer Rapid Fire. And we'll wrap things up Fridays with the RealAg Issues panel with Kelvin Hepner and Lindsay Smith. Join us Monday through Friday at 4:30 Eastern, and don't forget about the replay at 7 in the morning on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Get all the information you need to keep your pulse crop healthy and profitable with the Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School is a free YouTube video series covering agronomy, research, and more across a host of different pulse crops. It's also available as an audio podcast wherever you download or stream your favorite podcast. Check us out on YouTube or visit RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School, brought to you by BSF Canada.
The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is your one-stop shop for everything a canola grower needs. Check out our free video series on YouTube for all the latest in canola agronomy, research, marketing, and more. Don't have time to watch? Download the podcast version of the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com or anywhere you download your podcasts. Stay on top of all things canola with the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com, brought to you by BASF and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
An exciting new event is coming to Saskatchewan mid-January. The Sask Crops Forum will include Commission annual general meetings, 4 keynote sessions, plus extensive networking opportunities. Registration is now open. Visit Sask Canola to learn more.
One of the cool things with Real Agriculture is that we get to see and better understand a ton of different products and services that are developed for farmers and really try to help our audience be on the cutting edge of all the latest and greatest and what some of the offerings are from companies. And this can happen in machinery, it can happen in technology, but because there's a lot of noise out there. And so we try to, apply a filter and assist in helping everybody kind of better understand what's available out in the marketplace. And there's these products are coming fast and furious. Recently, Lindsay Smith from our team had a chance to talk to Jill Sharko with Ag Scouter app to talk about what some of its unique features are and what it's all about. Here's Jill and Lindsay.
I'm Lindsay Smith with Real Agriculture, and joining me now is Jill Sharko. She's the product manager with Ag Scouter. Welcome here, Jill.
Thank you for having me, Lindsay.
All right. What is Ag Scouter? This is a pretty exciting announcement we've got here.
It is. Ag Scouter is a cloud-based app that was designed by agronomists for agronomists and farmers to keep track of everything that's going on in the field. We know that data in the whole world, data is so important right now. And in agriculture, it's no exception. We know that we need to know what's going on out in the field. There are so many different variables with crop rotations and chemicals that can be put on your crop and things that are happening out there. You need that information in your hand, and on your phone is probably the best place because everybody has their phone. So the reason why it was created in the first place is we had a team of agronomists at our parent company, Agro Consulting, and we just couldn't find a program that was right for us. It was it needed to be easy and efficient, but it also needed to not have all of the other things going on. So our agronomists could go out, they could scout their fields, and then they could send their report right from their phone before they even left the field. Because what was happening before is they were going out, they were scouting their fields, they were keeping all this data, on notes or on their phone somewhere else, and then they're going home at night and creating those reports. Well, now the farmer is not getting it fast enough to make the decisions they need to make. Sometimes these windows are tight to spray or take care of things out in the field. So in the end, it's just a good data keeping tool that makes sure that what needs to get done gets done, because ultimately at the end of the day, farmers want to grow their best crops, and Ag Scouter can help them do that.
All right. Now, this is now an award-winning app.
Yes.
Yes. So exciting news. This just came about, but tell me about the award itself and sort of how that all came about.
For sure. So there is a company in Saskatoon called Collabs, and they are what they call themselves a tech incubator. So they are there to help tech companies in Saskatchewan in all areas, including agriculture, to really do the best job they can with growing their product, marketing their product, and they help the founders and the people involved in those companies to do a better job at all things that they can do. So it's a mentorship program, I think is what I would call it. We went for 8 weeks, traveled into Saskatoon, myself and Kara, the owner of Ag Scouter. And yeah, we just learned from a variety of people, public speaking, marketing experts, you name it, and all designed to really help us take our business and learn a few tips and tricks specific to the tech industry. So ag, we have all kinds of connections, all kinds of background. Myself, 15 years, Kara, over 20. But now we know a little bit more about the tech space, and there really is a growing tech scene in Saskatoon. So it's very exciting to be involved in that scene, but being involved with Collabs was a big part of that. So at the end of this program, they call it co-launch, they do a finale. And by the end of the program, even though there were a lot of applicants to get into the program, by the end, there were only 3 companies left, ourselves and 2 others. And there's a pitch contest. So that was on the 28th of November. Kara was able to give an amazing 5-minute pitch about what we do. There were 3 judges there. And then at the end, they asked her a few questions, and they awarded us the whole grand prize of $20,000. So that was very exciting for us. Yeah, it gives us validation in that tech side of the world too.
That's
and we
right.
won the People's Choice. So that was exciting too. The audience got to vote.
Oh, fantastic. All right. So unanimous decision across the board. Now, a prize like that, certainly welcome. Where does something like that go? Do you invest it in marketing? Is that in ongoing? What happens with a prize of that size?
So we had some exciting things happen at the beginning of 2024 that are probably going to affect what we do with that prize money. We had been using a development shop out in Montreal for the first 6 or 7 years of running the app. But in the beginning of 2024, we decided that we were big enough and getting enough traction with our customers out west that we decided to bring the development in-house. And we were able to find a developer based out of Saskatoon who actually grew up on a farm 15 minutes away from our head office in Nipawin. So that was pretty special. But he's just been a one-man show for 2024. So I think we're going to earmark some of that money to bring in some development help and just keep building some of these features that we know our customers really need.
Mm-hmm. And what is some of that feedback? What are the things that customers really appreciate about the platform? What are some of the things that are the wish they have and maybe are look to the future?
What we hear most from our customers is that it's easy to use. We know that technology is fantastic until it gets too complicated. So I would say that's our main feedback, is that it's simple, easy to use, it's doing what they need. So we don't have any aspirations of huge changes to our main core features, filling in observations, writing product recommendations, those things, a tweak here and there to bring in an extra little helpful feature, things like push notifications. We don't have any notifications right now. And something like a a grower being alerted on their app that their agronomist has put in a recommendation for spraying, that could be some value. So some of those little tips and tricks, but we do have some exciting things happening on the dashboard side. Right now, we don't have a computer side to the program, and some people do like to work on their computers. So I would say that's where we're going to focus first. But yeah, for the most part, up until the reporting, we're going to bring in a few more extra reports. I would say everybody's pretty happy with the ease of the program because people get overwhelmed by too much going on in there.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the more complicated they are, the more likely they are to fail at inopportune times. So we'll keep it simple.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. We like that. All right. And so for those who are interested in the Ag Scouter app, where can they find it? Where can they go for more information?
So we are available for download on the App Store. It's only available for iOS at the time. But if you go to our website, agscouterapp.com, there is a chat feature there. You go right to my phone. There's no impersonal call center somewhere else in the world. I'm the one who receives those calls right now. So you can definitely hit me up for more information.
All right. Sounds great. Okay, Jill, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Lindsay.
That was Jill Sharko of Ag Scouter app. It's always great to see new innovations and technologies and service offerings to farmers and the channel. And there's a lot of work happening here in the technology space as it applies to agronomy. So appreciate Jill being willing to talk about some of the things that they are up to and what they're doing. And it sounds pretty cool. If you have any feedback, we'd love to hear from you on that. Send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. Are there certain technologies and apps and products that you think would help you out in the field? I've been really doing a lot of reading lately on the role that artificial intelligence could play in agronomic decisions going forward. There's a kind of a diverse amount of views on that. Very interesting stuff and what the future holds from an agronomic standpoint as it applies to technology and artificial intelligence and stuff like that. Okay, coming up here on RealAg on the Weekend next, we're going to hear about what's happening in the machinery space. It's not good. Sales are way down. We'll talk about why in Canada and the United States right after this.
I'm Lindsay Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomist, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomist with me, Lindsay Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin, host of the Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com. Throughout the year, on the Soybean School, we'll bring you timely agronomic video content from planting to harvest, from the latest agronomic research to the latest in production technology. Check out our massive video library on YouTube, RealAgriculture.com, or download the audio podcast versions wherever you get your podcasts. The Soybean School is brought to you by BASF and Syngenta Canada.
Farmers' trust is everything. Genesis Fertilizers is making real progress towards providing reliable, locally produced fertilizer. Join the ownership group and protect your bottom line. Learn more at genesisfertilizers.com/credibility.
One of the things that we are seeing in the market right now, because farm profitability is a real concern heading from 24 and into 25, in the US and Canada, we are seeing a pullback in what farmers are spending on equipment. And that showed itself very much so in the November report from the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. Now, the AEM is the group that represents all of the mainline equipment manufacturers, John Deere, Case, New Holland, all of those, okay? Fendt. Now, the numbers are weak, and I wanted to get a little bit more insight on this. So I did an interview with the VP of AEM, Kurt Blades. I had this on the Real Ag Radio podcast on Wednesday. Also, it's on the Real Agriculture YouTube channel. A lot of interest in this topic. I think it's like well over 8,000 views on YouTube. Here's a conversation I had with Kurt Blades about machinery sales.
Well, I don't have anything really positive to share. As you had said in your kind of opening statements there, it's not good news for ag equipment sales. Also, not necessarily a surprise. We've seen this one coming at us for a while. But it really is showing itself with the November numbers. November is historically a pretty low month, but so we looked at year to date, we're down about 14% across the board on tractors. for the whole year of 2024, and we're down about 25%, 24% in combines year to date. So those are, there's no way to sugarcoat those. Those are pretty disappointing numbers. But also, it's kind of what our manufacturers and farmers have been telling us for the last 6 to 8 months, that this is coming. And as you correctly said, when the belts get tightened, you kind of have to buy seed. You kind of have to buy crop protection. Oftentimes, a tractor can last one more year, and I think that's the situation that we're in right now. Couple that with interest rates being particularly high, I think that's really showing up in some of those more considered expensive purchases as well.
What about the Canadian numbers? Do they reflect better? Are they a little more positive, or the same sort of story?
It's about the same. I mean, there's Canada's actually down about 18% year to date. There is a bright spot in Canada with articulated four-wheel drive showing some signs of life. It's actually up about 11% for the year. That's not a lot of numbers, but they are big pieces of equipment. So that does, point to some degree of positivity. Combines are a little stronger. They're only down 12% in Canada versus being down 24% in the United States. Those combine numbers are also sort of interesting because last year was a particularly strong year for combine sales. So you're comparing a strong year versus kind of a rebound year. So you kind of have to look at this a little more than just as a snapshot.
And if we look at some of your members, they're publicly traded, so we've been hearing some of the earnings statements. So again, Not a surprise, some of those earnings statements have spoke to some of these broader industry numbers. Yep. I guess what is kind of the outlook? What do we see going forward? Is this more of a short-term blip, or is this something that it typically takes a couple years to work through? What happens from here forward?
Well, when we started to see this downturn about, at the beginning of the summer, everyone was saying this is going to be with us for a little while. The definitions of a little while ranged from 6 months to 18 months. So let's say we're 6 months into this sort of early downturn, or 6 to 8 months into that early downturn. I think most folks are saying we're going to be dealing with this probably for the first couple of quarters of 2025. Before we really start to see those strong turnarounds. But again, it's agriculture. There's a lot of organic things that sort of come at us, whether it's the weather or global trade or interest rates or a new administration in the United States or whatever. Those things can turn pretty quickly, and that's also a good thing. But what we're paying keenly attention to, and this is what sort of causes that tail to last a little bit longer, is you look at dealer lots. And they're starting to see some equipment on dealer lots, specifically the combines and dealer lots. And that's something to just you kind of get an indication of what that means for the health of rural America, the health of the dealership. If you start to see those harvesters and pieces of equipment stack up on dealer lots, that's not necessarily a good thing. So I think the dealers are doing a pretty decent job of managing those, but that we've got to work through that inventory before we really start to see some of that major turnaround that we're looking for.
As a hobbyist economist, we know supply and demand. When demand slows and supply increases, we know that there's an impact on pricing. Is that something that members are talking a lot about, or what's your outlook?
That's what's pretty great, because I think we've all learned some lessons. Certainly in the manufacturing space, we learned some lessons 10 years ago when we were coming off of just a boom years of equipment sales, and we just kept producing a lot of it. And then so we found ourselves in a demand situation where it sort of dried up. You had just an excess of inventory. In this case, as you had mentioned, those publicly traded companies have been pretty straightforward about their trying to slow down or temper that supply to meet the demand, or the anticipated slowdown in demand. And although those were really uncomfortable and unpopular decisions that were being made, for the last 12 months, it proved to be pretty insightful, because the last thing you want is more equipment out there than the market could handle, because that depresses prices, that depresses resale value, which ultimately, that depresses farmers' bottom lines and their ability to get financing. So it's a delicate balance. We got to work together. So I'm thrilled that the manufacturers had the foresight to begin to slow down. That has a very unfortunate ripple effect, both in terms of individuals' jobs, which we heart goes out to, but also that whole supply chain. You hear about the big headlines of the publicly traded companies, but it's those component manufacturers are also struggling as a result of those slowdowns at the OEM level.
That was Kurt Blades, Vice President at the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. You can find that entire interview by listening to the RealAg Radio podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. If you have any feedback on today's show, send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. Thanks, everybody, for listening to RealAg on the Weekend here on 650 CKOM and 980 CJME.